I know how much to beat that cost.
Well, that's a joke.
I know. They cost anywhere between
Answer all the questions I don't want to answer? Alright, cool. There we go. I've already started. Alright. Oh, exciting. Come aboard. That goes on. We just pan up to the audience. We've been expecting you. Go to panel.
Who's coming for me? I need the rest of help.
Won't hurt anymore. No, look at the audience. There's nobody there. There's nobody there. I love it. An open sky on a friendly shore. The Love Boat. Welcome aboard, it's love. Wait, I got one person on my panel? You can't start closing the panel up? What are we waiting on? Why are the doors shut?
That's a KO.
You have to clean it? Oh, okay, sorry. I'm saying things. I'm talking, saying things. They're taking pictures of me, so. This is surreal. I normally come out after everybody's in the room. Oh, she's going to direct you. Full capacity, which is going to get really hot in this room. No, I don't know. Once all the body heat starts radiating. Oh no, not sexy hot. I don't think it's going to be. It's going to be. I'm at a convention hot.
You're all done. You know I helped.
We got both of them.
Garbage out.
Yeah, let's not use the chairs. This is not. This will probably be my last iPhone, which I didn't want to buy to begin with. I love a headphone jack. It's real simple. You can just plug your headphones into it. I don't need the Bluetooth. And the reason I like Bluetooth is because that's something else I have to charge.
Out of the picture.
I get that assist.
All right, cool. So, oh wait, you're starting?
Yeah, let me start.
Okay, you're starting.
Because
All
I
right.
have instructions, unfortunately. As you can see, I do not have a floating mic. So, and I know that you guys want to ask this lovely man all the bajillion million questions about Goku and Saturn.
Nobody.
You don't watch Dragon Ball, do you? Yeah, you don't.
Dude!
You're wearing the wrong shirt. Oh, okay. So I couldn't tell.
Yeah. So, I come on my friend house, and I do know something else. If you're interested in Dragon Ball Kakarot, there is
Oh, there's a demo? There's a playable demo? Oh, sweet. Where's that at? That's Sony?
Sony PlayStation.
Oh, Sony's putting it up.
Yeah,
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So if you guys
That
want to
makes
check
sense.
that out.
Since they bought Sony. They did.
I'm going to ask you guys to like.
No, this is not how I do it. Here's why. And they always have these moments, you've done my news, they put a mic in the front, everybody lines up, here's what happens. No, I don't want anybody at the front. I want you to either Donahue this, or I'm just going to call people out. Because what will happen is people come up to the front, and then they have the mic, then there's a long line, and then nobody can see, and then I never get to the next person. It's like everybody waiting forever, and the last 10 people don't get a question. It's just better if we Donahue it, and if you had a remote mic, it'd be easier for you to Donahue it, but you can't. So how long is that cable?
This cable can go.
I mean, I guess I can call people out, have them run up to me and go sit down, but some people are very ensconced in their seats. So, and the room's so small, I might be able to hear them. There's just a lot of stuff that makes things more complicated than it should be. Although it seems like I'm doing that right now, but I'm not.
The way you want to roll.
Trust me, I've done this for 20 years. I know exactly what sucks and what doesn't. And the line with the mic, it always is a disaster, and it always blocks everybody's view. So, what are you doing again?
My name is Jessica.
Jessica. That's easy to remember. Well, because I have a sister named Jessica. So yes, you can start us off. I have
give us?
Yeah, I don't
Overview.
usually, sit here and list all my credits, but
Yes.
I worked, I've been a voice actor for 20 years. My first job was Dragon Ball Z. My first audition was Goku, and then since then I've worked on Pokemon, Ninja Turtles, Yu-Gi-Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh GX, Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds, Scooby-Doo, Batman game, Fallout. Let's see, I was just in Welcome to the Wayne. My IMDb has it. I don't keep track of it. It's sorry. I'm trying to look it up. What else I did? I don't know. What am I doing?
It's just to illustrate that you're.
Yeah, I don't get. Yeah, it's
You understand I'm
it's
dead.
not frustrating. I actually kind of like it that way, only because I'm the kind of voice actor I'm not reading while I'm on a panel. I'm trying to find my credits because I don't know what I've done. Sophia the First, I was in that. Little Big Awesome, I was in that. God of War, I was in that. Pop Team Medic, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Adventures of Kid Danger. Let's see. So I do lots of other voices. And Willy Wonka. Oh, I love doing Willy Wonka. I did Tom and Jerry, Willy Wonka, and the Chocolate Factory. That was so much fun because that's like my favorite movie of all time, and I got to play Veruca Salt's dad, Mr. Salt. I got to play Mr. Turpentine. When I mix these chemicals together, it makes the world's greatest water remover. I got to do him, and I got to sing all the Oompa Loompa songs. And I got to go, you got no, come on. I got to do that. It was really fun. And by the way, when I was a kid, I watched Oompa Loompa. I watched Willy Wonka with my grandmother. The Oompa Loompa scared the shit out of me. I was terrified. I was 4 or 5 years old maybe when I watched it with her, and I was terrified of the Oompa Loompas. I was like terrified, but yet compelled to keep watching. Like, because they were supposed to be good guys who were helping Willy Wonka out, but they just seemed like creepy little people who were gonna do something bad to me if I did not behave. Which they didn't. They were totally nice. I think the minor key of the song really, got me in a dark place as a 5-year-old. But I adore that movie. Anyway, all right. Let's start taking some questions. Let's get this guy here with the thing. Doctor Strange. Yes, I love Doctor Strange. I didn't see the medallion. I love Doctor Strange. There we go.
So I guess first off, welcome, and you've been having a big day. That's not my question. My question is, with all the roles you've done, including Goku, obviously, what about these roles had a huge impact on your life?
Well, the character or what comes from the role? Because the thing that has the biggest impact on my life has been Dragon Ball and Goku because of look at the room. Like, this is amazing. And that's a huge impact on me. As far as like how a character can impact you as a person.
Perhaps, but even just like voicing Goku, as well as the other ones, so like what voicing Goku has meant to you, and to like
And so you don't mean, okay, sorry, I'm a picky listener. So like, you're not saying how playing the characters affected my life. Just all the spoils that go with playing that character.
yeah, and it's like
I always look. I'm 50 years old, and I started working on the show when I was 30, and I consider everything I have in life I owe to Akira Toriyama Sensei and the powers that be that brought Dragon Ball to the U.S., etc. So I can't, even when I fantasize about like other lives or careers that seem more opulent or amazing than mine, I don't want them. Like, it's because I think about it in broad terms sometimes. It literally is like a dream come true every day. It really is. It's very strange. It's like winning the lottery every day without the millions of dollars. But other than that, it's because there's not. But that's okay. That's not the big deal. It's because the gratification part is like doing panels like this and meeting you guys and going to conventions. I'm a bit of an introvert, I've discovered, even though I seem like an extrovert, and so I get worn out pretty hard from conventions. Like, I know some people that like just go, and I will sometimes just have time where I need to be like left alone for like 2 weeks because I'm not faking it, because I'm always trying to be genuine with every person. It takes a lot of personal energy. I don't necessarily think the Myers-Briggs is that scientific, but the theory goes that if you're an introvert, you recharge energetically by being alone, and if you're an extrovert, you recharge energetically by interacting with people. I'm leaning towards extrovert, but a bit of an introvert, so I can do this for a while, but then I get worn out. But then once I'm done being worn out, I have all these memories and all this stuff that I take to my phone and pictures I see online and all the joy that it's really brought me guys. So, I mean, if you've ever wondered, like, I try to put in perspective, if you ever wondered about your own life, like, what will I do for me? The legacy is this, regardless of my other voice work. And so it's, I mean, I can't believe I'm sitting here to this day. You know, I can't believe I'm sitting here 20 years later. I'm not done with Dragon Ball Super either. I got about 4 or 5 episodes to wrap on that. And then who knows what else is coming. The powers that be in Japan have not told me what's going on, but they have intimated to me that they have big plans for Dragon Ball. So I don't know what that's going to be, but as long as my voice works, I'll be doing it. So it's a long answer to a good question, but I think about these things philosophically. Let's get Batman here. Batman, yeah, right there. Don't worry, I'll make sure she goes around the room. And if she can't reach, just come on up to her, and or you can just talk loud.
Hey, so just wanted to ask, you've done Z, you've done GT, and Super. Goku's been quite different in each of those.
Yeah.
How would you describe the differences, and which do you prefer?
Well, it's tricky because, you know, you're talking about differences. I don't know how much differences there are between the Japanese language, Z, GT, Super, versus script adaptations for Z, Kai, GT, and Super. And I've been a script adapter. I was an ADR director for New York and a script adapter for 3 years. And when I first started, you know, I was doing very loose interpretations of my shows, just kind of making it as American as possible. And then I completely realized that was dumb. And I started writing my shows as close to the Japanese as possible, but to try to make it enjoyable for American audiences, particularly when it comes to humor. Humor doesn't always translate real well across multiple languages. So we'll add a joke, we'll tweak a joke here and there. So I guess the differences you're talking about are probably between the 3 English languages, because Z was written originally to be what I call the Pokemon formula, which is, hey, try to make this show not as Japanese as possible, which was the trend in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then, you know, as anime got more popular, and more acceptable to mainstreams, etc., I think the creators in America, the localizers is what they're called, a localization company, you realize that, and I've always believed this, because the reason I've always believed it is because I believe art is a human thing that transcends all cultures and all languages. So if Dragon Ball is massively popular in Japan, you don't need to Americanize it for it to be massively popular in the U.S. because the story's strong. The story's strong, it's going to translate. And I was making that argument for years. Only until we did Kai did we finally do it like right, you know, and not that it's wrong otherwise, it was just contextually what was the industry trend. So the difference is, you know, I know that Z, Goku's as a character is played more like an altruistic superhero character, which Akira Toriyama's made it clear that he's not. And GT, that's not even his work, and I only play adult Goku in that, so I don't have a lot of that story. I haven't watched it since I've done it, so I don't, you know, Goku's an adult. Hey, I come in and do some voices. The rest of the storyline's going on with Kid Goku, and they didn't want me to do that voice, which I understand, that's fine. And then Kai, well, it's you know, Stephanie did a good job. We did toy with the idea of every time Goku as a kid thinks it was my voice, because he's still an adult, which I agreed with, because I wanted a paycheck. But also artistically, I agreed with it. But they didn't, so that's fine. And then Kai, they finally, you know, really purest form. And with Super, I'm like, I would appreciate if I could have Japanese scripts in the booth every time I work. And my producer supports that, you know, so he lets me do that. And if I see lines that don't fit with what I believe is the canon of Goku, which is that he's not a proud Saiyan warrior, he is, you know, he is a beginner's mind all the time. He's always a childlike state. That's Vegeta's venue. Proud Saiyan warrior. People always want to make Goku that way because they think it's badass. And I'm like, let's let Vegeta be badass, and Goku can be a different kind of badass. Because he is. He's a different kind of badass if you really think about it. And he's also kind of as I've discovered in recent years, and I've known this for a while, but in recent years it's become more evident that he really is the Quagmire of Dragon Ball, except for instead of for ladies, it's for fighting. You know, and he's like, is there fighting? Giggity! You know, like, it's exactly the same. He is a hound for fighting. I hate to put it in that context, but, you know, I watched a lot of Family Guy. My girlfriend loves that show, so we watch a lot of Family Guy, and I've seen a lot of, my favorite thing is though is when Family Guy, when Peter gets a bird, Falcon or something and names him Xerxes or something like that. I'm driving around with Xerxes, you know, he's doing the. And he has a. I don't know. I just thought that was particularly funny. I like weird, quirky things in cartoons. Like I love Rick and Morty, and my favorite character is Bird Person. I love Bird Person so much. And I played Hawkman on you know, the parody of it on a show, but I always thought, until I really understood the lore of Hawkman, that was kind of a dumb character, but now I don't think it is. And then Bird Person, he's like Bird Phoenix later or something, which I think, I met Justin Roiland, and he told me that I think that character, Bird Person, is voiced by Dan Harmon. I'm not sure, but I think it is. And Justin's a really nice guy. I was really honored to meet him. That show is probably one of the most polished, for especially the first season. I was blown away at how polished. Usually cartoons, the first season's kind of rough. Man, that first season of Rick and Morty is so polished. I was so impressed with it. Because I just expected there to be all kinds of first season mistakes you'll see on an animation. And season 2 doesn't look much different. And sounds, it's just, I'm really impressed with that production. Anyway, I digress. Oh yeah, changes. I don't know. You know, I would have to watch the original. And the problem with the Japanese translations is, and this is what the tricky part I have with the manga, it's kind of like going to a Chinese doctor. If you go to 5 different Chinese doctors, you're going to go get 5 different Chinese diagnoses. Because I've been to a lot of Chinese medicine doctors, and they'll tell you, and that's not bad necessarily, but sometimes it's not accurate. And you do 5 different translations from 5 different Japanese translators. You get, you know, and I'm particularly picky about English language. So, like, I'll see, you know, manga version, and I'll see the subtitle version. I'm like, wait a second, those 2 sentences connotate 2 very different meanings, where another person's like, oh, it's the same thing, whatever, blow it off. I'm like, I don't blow it off. Like, it's very, I'm a very particular person when it comes to language. And so, you know, like, for example, we were doing the Dragon Ball movie, Battle of the Gods, when he meets Beerus, they had written, they were trying to do this formal speech Goku was doing with Beerus when he's trying to do honorifics and stuff. And, you know, oh, yes, sir. And, you know, but they had this thee, thou, and your highness, and all this Britishy vernacular. And I really didn't feel like Goku would have any access to that, really understand that, or have watched British television, or I was like, I don't even know, I don't even know how to, so I just made him really stumble in a dorky way, and I ad-libbed a lot of that, in Battle of Gods, because I didn't believe that he would have access to that kind of knowledge to ad-lib in that way. So you have to think about what's Goku doing with his spare time. How would he say that? Is it consistent with his level of education? Does he even know 4 syllable words? That's why I loved it in Broly, where he's like, I learned that word. I forgot what it was. What was it? It was repugnant, yeah. And we toyed with several jokes on that line, but I thought that was really great, you know. At the very end, what did he say? He said, my friends say this place is repugnant, or something like that. That's a word, and I tried to realize that's a word I learned. You know, and Goku's not stupid. He just didn't go to school. you know, the Cell Saga proves he's a long game chess player. You know, he played the long game with Cell. He kept that Gohan secret hidden. You know, so it was very smart. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. I tend to tangentialize. And by the way, let's try to keep it a wide swath. Let's get some of these guys over here with the beard and the shirt, and we'll get some people back in there. And if we can, at some point, we got time, right? What time do I got to wrap this panel? 15 minutes. 4? Okay, cool.
All right, so, my question to you is, like, how did you get started? Like, you've been working with Funimation, so what was the process to actually, you know, start working with them? Like, how did that occur?
Well, Funimation was a small company when we first started working on Dragon Ball, and they originally worked in Vancouver on the Ocean Group, and they originally cast the show with a bunch of Canadian actors. They decided to move production to Texas. And so when they brought us into the audition, this is not common in animation auditions as much as I thought it was. And they just had us listen to, we wanted to voice match because they wanted to save money. I don't know what their motivations were, because I knew that the company was from Texas and they had land in Texas, and the overhead was significantly cheaper to produce the show in Texas versus Vancouver. And so they had Ian for the first 26 episodes, and Peter Columbus did the next 26 in Texas. And I started, and then they said, well, match these voices, and then I did my best voice match for that, and King Kai and Nail, because I also voiced King Kai on the show. A lot of people just don't realize I voiced King Kai as well. I think that's hilarious that people don't know that, which makes me happy, because if I'm doing my job right as a voice actor, you're not thinking about me. You know, you're thinking about the character. I want to suspend your disbelief. So when I'm doing King Kai, I want you to know it's me, because because then it's, you know what I mean. I want you to have that experience. So I mean, that's my job as an actor. So they set us in a room and they said, copy these voices, and then they had us audition, and they didn't tell us what the voices were, what show was for. They didn't tell us anything. They just had a picture of the characters, some animation we watched, and I didn't think I was going to get a part at all. I honestly didn't. And then I thought I was going to get Captain Ginyu for sure, and was super disappointed when I did not get that part, since I did not know anything. And then Chris Sabat called me up, who was not a friend of mine at the time. We are friends now and have been for 20 years, but he's like, yeah, you're going to be Goku. I'm like, you sure about that? Because I really nailed that other part. And he's like, no, trust me, you're going to want this part. I'm like, all right, cool. So then I went to work, and it took me about 2 weeks of recording before I realized I was the main character of this. I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. I was really Gokuing out, so to speak. I was pretty clueless about that. And then I thought I could make every fight reaction different, not realizing there were 297 episodes of fighting or whatever, 99. I can't remember how many episodes there are. 200. It's a lot of episodes. That was a dumb one. But one rule I haven't changed, which I try to, and hopefully it's evidenced by the Jiren stuff, is you can't half-ass it. You know what I mean? And what always is guiding me is the intensity of the animation. So I'm glad I get to dub, because if they wanted me to if it just said Kamehameha, then big scream, and I didn't have animation, and I didn't know that scream was going to go on 3 or 4 minutes, I'd scream, for 20 seconds, go, okay, cool, next, because that's what you do in a prelay show. But because we're dubbing, I get to see all the power and all the energy, and I let that inspire me, inform me of the kind of, commitment I need to give to it. And then I go as hard as I can until my voice hurts, or it keeps hurting. And then we play it back, and then we listen to it, and then I'm like, okay. And I usually get approval on whether or not because I want it to be just, I want everybody to lose their mind. Like, I love the Broly movie, just losing their mind, screaming, it's great. Because you're having a great time, and I know that feeling from when I was watching my favorite show. I just want to pass it on here. So I hope that answers the question. I get the attention on it. Yes, Jessica. Yes.
Okay, sorry. My question to you, your voice, it's so clear, it's so easy to understand you. Did you go through any formal voice training, in your life, or did you just,
That's funny. That's really funny, because I was born in Iowa. Iowa's a Midwestern state, and that's kind of where, it used to be the land of where middle speech is. You don't have an accent, so to speak. Supposedly, you do not have an accent. And the reason I think it's funny that you mentioned that is because I moved to Texas when I was 12, and this is not true today. I have a lot of Texas friends, and I spent 22 years in Texas, but I went to elementary school, junior high, and high school there, as well as college there, and both my exes live in Texas. So, I remember, it's funny that you mentioned that as far as addiction goes, because I remember going to Texas and thinking, afraid I was going to get a Texas accent because I didn't want to sound stupid. And I realized that Texans are not stupid, they just have an accent. But I didn't figure that out until after living there for 20 years and met a bunch of my smart Texan friends that are like, all right, so we're going to talk about some quantum physics, y'all. We got a boson particle going through 350 miles of lead. How many atoms is it going to bump into? The answer is 0. I had this pre-bias that, as a kid, that you sound like you wouldn't sound smart if you sounded that way. And I think a lot of ladies go through this. You talk about in business circles where ladies go through this, where if you get a business job, you got to talk low. All this misogynistic BS where you got to you'll see. And I've met business ladies like, hi, I'm Susan. I'm like, why are you talking so low? I said, well, I learned this at a seminar that I'll be taken more seriously if I talk low. Which, oddly enough, is a true thing, I guess. I don't know. I try not to judge people on being a voice actor for so many years. I'm more fascinated by people's voices than I am judging of them, And I've grown and changed as a person. As a kid, I'm judging that. Now I don't read a voice by its cover anymore. I've met people, and especially from another country, and second language. I've met people who could barely speak English. Well, yes, I am a surgeon, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Russian. If you're a surgeon, right? So it's I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I speak very clearly because I had a fear of sounding stupid. And I was also born in a state without an accent, I guess. And I also was fascinated by voices when I was a kid. And I loved listening to newscasters. So I love it, and they are taught to speak in a certain. You go to elocution school to do newscasting speech so that everybody can understand you. Which is when I meet somebody from a foreign country and they ask me how to get better at English, other than recommending the ESL tapes I recorded where I'm teaching you how to speak English, where I'm going, I'd like to buy an orange. Like, I have to say that, and they record me saying that, you know? I did that like 10 years ago, right? But I will tell people from other countries, I say, if you want to get good at English, watch the news, because they're going to speak very clearly, you know, tonight's top story. So I listen to Walter Cronkite, Charles Corral, all the old newscasters, Tom Brokaw, and I always listen to those really rich voices that sound, you know, I always enjoyed that. So I try to be, you know, as clear as possible. And then when I studied music, I was a professional French hornist. You know, one of the things we focus on a lot is our tongue and articulation for playing an instrument, which develops those muscles, which translate. There's all kinds of other interconnected ways that affect your diction. God, my answers are so long and stupid. I'm sorry I tangentialized so much. Let's get somebody back in the back. This little girl right there. Little girl right there with the hair. Yes, that's colored. You mean like? Sorry, I was just thought of a person to act with. I really love. Well, when you're voice acting, you don't act with other actors very often unless you're doing a relay show. A relay means we're laying down voices before it's animated, whereas on Dragon Ball, since it comes from another country, we're dubbing it after the fact. It's originally Japanese, and then we dub it, right? However, one of the people I act with and ad-lib with very well is Sonny Strait, the voice of Krillin. We'll ad-lib for hours. We're actually working on an animated podcast called Saying Stuff. S-A-Y-I-N. We're not violating any copyright. S-A-Y-I-N, saying stuff, but we just say saying stuff. And basically, Sonny and I just ad-lib on a mic for an hour, and then he goes and animates little snippets of it, and he's animated 2 of them, and he just drew us like Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and we're just talking about stuff, just rant. It's basically like how I'm ad-libbing and ranting, but Sonny's doing it with me, and he is so good at ad-libbing with me. We just sometimes, if I get on the phone to talk to him for 5 minutes, it's always an hour conversation, and we're not even talking about things we meant to talk about. So I guess the voice of Krillin, my best friend on the TV show, would be my favorite person to act with, you know, in terms of ad-libbing. But that's a good point, because we act alone a lot. And one of the things I've been really craving as an actor I've been wanting to act with other people more. So I'm looking at doing some on camera, maybe some stand-up comedy, maybe some improv comedy. I've been so focused on Dragon Ball and voice acting and other stuff in my life that I'm getting to a point where I'm like, okay, it's time to expand your horizons as an artist. So yeah, exactly. Good head on your shoulders. I like that. Yeah, she's smart. Thank you for that question. Thank you. Let's go in the back. Let's go with that guy in the back. And then I want to get somebody inland here, because I think people inland get neglected because they're ensconced by other people. Yeah.
What do you think of the more serious tone of the Japanese version of King Kai as compared to...
Well, we talk about that because I'm doing King Kai like that because that's the way, I think it was Terry Clausen did it, and he did a voice that sounded to me like Buddy Hackett. And, yeah, for those of you who know who Buddy Hackett is. And so I went to Buddy Hackett's webpage. I think he's died since then, but I went to Buddy Hackett's webpage, and it sounds like King Kai telling a bunch of dirty jokes. It does. I was like, whoa, Buddy Hackett really sounds a lot like... and I don't know if Terry was copying Buddy Hackett or whatever. The only thing we notice about the Japanese version is we don't understand, and I asked a Japanese person, they said, oh yeah, it totally makes sense in Japanese. But you'll see King Kai freaking out, and it's like giant mouth flaps, right? Except all you hear is, I can't speak Japanese, but it sounds like this very old man who can barely speak, right? Which apparently goes with the character in Japanese. I certainly don't want to offend that actor because he's obviously acting the part right for Japanese language. And so we noticed that, and I don't know if I would have come up with such a goofy voice for King Kai had I thought of it, but I do like goofy voices. Like one of the goofy voices I came up with for an anime dub was Dr. Valiant Crowler. That was totally my creation to talk like this the whole time, because I thought it was very pompousy, right? It was very character voice, or a Jama Yellow. Hey man, talk like this. You know, I had this high squeaky voice. So for King Kai, if I were doing that voice now, I definitely would have given him something jowly, because I do look at the physicality of a creature. So he's got these big cheeks, you know, so I would probably want something cheeky in there. I would probably, but I don't know if I would have done that or not. Because I didn't, you know, I was mimicking another English-speaking actor. So But I do find that of all the Japanese voices, that one and the Japanese voice of Yajirobe is hilarious. It's like, it's like, I don't speak Japanese, but it's like, really screechy, like, and I love it. I'm like, that's really, really funny. So yeah, and what was interesting to me, and I don't know how they feel about it, is like, I remember working on a show called Kappa Mikey, which was an original prelay show. Who's seen Kappa Mikey? A few people. Yeah, I love Kappa Mikey. Well, I got to see the German dub of it. I'm like, oh wow, they're copying our voices. I'm the original voice for this show, right? And it was really weird to hear other nationalities do their interpretation of the voice he created. I was impressed. I saw the German version. I might have saw the Italian version. It's very interesting to hear that as an artist to hear those other characters. Let's see if we can get somebody inland. Goes deep into the crowd. That guy with the glasses. Yes. Stand up. Yes. He's probably loud enough. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, slacker. Get to work. I love to. Yeah, that's a question that I don't. Well, my question is, why do people want my opinion on it? I've never understood that. Like, I've never understood what difference my opinion makes on that. Because I have a strong opinion about it. People think, I hate them or whatever, and I don't. I am a big believer in credit where credit's due, and I'm a big believer in respecting a license. So, Toei has asked them to stop numerous times, and they don't, and I don't believe it's fair use. I think they're funny, talented guys, and I wish them the best. But it's also frustrating for me because while it's very funny, I travel the world to promote the show I'm working on, and I don't work on that show. So then I would have to support and promote something that not only the parent company is not thrilled about, but that's not I don't even work on. So I guess I don't understand why my opinion matters on it even. No offense to you. But I try to understand that because it's become quite a business for them, and it's a tricky thing when you're looking at international copyright and fair use, and in another country that. To put it in perspective from the Japanese perspective, and this is not me speaking for them, but I can speak from other shows. I was working on a show, typically they don't like parody or mockery of their shows. Most Japanese companies do not. And I learned this the hard way when I was working on a show called Berserk, and we did, outtakes, and we put it on the reel. And at first we got in trouble, and then another company said, don't do outtakes. And then after we finished the shows, when I was an ADR director at NYB Post, after we finished the show, it wasn't Berserk, it was a different show, they go, well, did you do any outtakes? And we said, yes. And they go, okay, we want them. But most companies, it's a cultural thing for them. So, and I care about the character and stewarding the brand and the character and the sanctity of the character so much that I want to keep that, pure for them and follow their rules versus what we might want or think we're entitled to in America or Canada in this case. So, for people to draw speculation or what I think or whatever, I'm laying it out what I think right now. It's and I would do. These guys are very funny. I wish them the best, but I don't work on that show. So you know what I mean? Like I'm here to promote Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Super, and I wish that I don't like the idea that we have this entitlement in America where it's like, well, if it's out there, I can just use it. It's fair use, and it'd be kind of like, what if you drew a manga and then I just decided to go take it and do whatever I want with it, put it up on YouTube and make money off it? Like there's a reason Disney and other big companies control their IP because it's about, and it also. It hurts art. A lot of people think it helps art, but to me as an artist, I get the idea of a mashup, and I get the idea of a parody because I write parodies for music, but I create my own music tracks and I do my own production on it when I do it. But then it also tells lots of kids that it's okay to just take some visual art, and I don't understand why our copyright parody laws don't protect the visual aspects that you can just, even on a live action movie. And so I've talked to several lawyers about it because I wanted to understand it. And it's very strange because you can copyright something for so many years and then it's fair use or whatever, but they don't necessarily have that law. So just because they're selling it in the U.S. doesn't mean that our parody laws should apply to them. And at the very least, I believe that if I did a parody and I put it up online and the parent company said, hey, that's not cool, I would take it down because just out of respect, even if I was legally entitled, out of respect for And what if Akira Toriyama came out? Like he's never said anything about it. What if he said, hey man, I'm not cool at this. Is everybody going to bitch at Akira Toriyama like they bitch at me? Because they do. They gripe at me all the time because I don't abjectly support it. So I don't understand it. But I'm a big believer in original content. And it's a great way to cut your chops, to improvise and do parody. And it's a great way to get your chops in gear. But I've tried to make an original animation before, and I haven't finished it. it's really hard to make a hit. So yeah, you can riff on somebody's show all day and use their animation, but you're riding on somebody else's back. And so I take issue with that. I think it comes from my classical music training, because as a classical musician, it's very strictly like, you do not plagiarize Tchaikovsky. You do not, it's not something you do. So I get other people are cool with it, and I'm not uncool with it. I'm just trying to focus on, you know, what I've been saying this whole time. So sorry about the long answer, but, you know, sorry. Anyway, thank you. Ah, yes.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Have you done any shows, games, anything that you wanted to do?
I don't, it's really weird, because I don't, I think actors, I'm not a typical actor. I don't know if it's because I was started out in music or what. I don't sit around going, all right, I want to be the next Spider-Man, or whatever, you know, I don't, I don't, you know, there's a couple of properties that I'm working on right now. I've signed NDAs on that I'm real excited about, and I don't, sometimes I'll see a live action show, or I'll think of a live action version of something that I would like to do that's an anime, you know, and then sometimes we'll make it into that. Or I'll want to produce something, I wanted to redub the voices on Fantastic Planet and update it, because it was recorded in the 60s, and it's fine for its time, but I'm like, it'd be really interesting to update that. It's very good in French, some of my favorite old animations. But I'm more interested in doing original stuff, like that stuff that either I create or that, you know, it's a new show with a new character. You know, I don't know that I'd want to be the 6th voice of Batman or whatever, even though I played Batman doing a Christian Bale voice match in The Dark Knight Rises for iPad, to be very clear, because Kevin Conroy is my Batman. So I would never take any of his credit, but Kevin is an amazing actor and a great guy. And I remember watching Batman long before. Fun fact, I was watching Batman, the animated series when it came out, before I was a voice actor. And then Batman, I went to school with a guy named Chris Carter, and I played French horn on 2 of his movie soundtracks. He went on to move to LA to work on Batman animated series as a composer, and then wrote the music theme song for Batman Beyond, and now he's composing for all kinds of different animated series. He was a composition student at North Texas, and I was a French horn performance major. I played on a couple of his movies for $40 at Pizza. You know, back in the, I don't know, was it 90s, I guess. I played on a movie called A Matter of Honor, and then I played on El Mariachi, the prequel to Desperado. I played French horn on that. That was before I was a voice actor. So weird connections, which is why I think it's so important that everybody, you know, when you go to school, it's more than what you learn there, it's the connections you make and how that network goes into the professional world. It makes a big difference. How much time do we have? We have 2 minutes? There's a guy over here. Wait, I wanted to get, so I got somebody in the middle.
10 minutes.
Cool. I'll probably be one question, because I'll talk for 10 minutes. Yes, sure, Superman. And then we'll get the guy wearing the blue in the back with the beard.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. What local exercises do you do before getting that kind of range that you have?
None. No. Here's. I don't do vocal exercises, and I should. I did a lot of vocal exercises in choir, and I was a choir director. I've been doing this voice so long. It's once you learn breathing technique, the most I have to do now, and it's getting worse as I age, but most I have to do now is if I go to a session and there's a lot of screaming, I'll tell the director, hey, can I do all this dialogue first as a warm-up? But if I were doing vocal exercises, it's usually breathing, rib stretching exercises, your standard, or checking my range from my falsetto down. I'll stretch everything. Put my hands out and try this and over enunciate each line. It'll help stretch your mouth muscles. But generally for Goku, I don't, you know, I'm usually warmed up by the time I get to the studio. Oddly enough, singing along in your car is and I also talk a lot, so I'm always kind of warmed up, you know, where other people, and it also depends on your physicality. Like, I've always been gifted with being able to just heal really quickly and not have to do a big warm-up, even when I was a horn player. So once I'm warm, you know, and when I'm playing a horn a lot, I don't even warm up because I blow a few notes and I'm ready to go. But as I get older, it does get a little trickier. And the main thing is just to, I think the key is, instead of warming up, is to make sure you remember proper vocal technique in the booth, so that you don't mess up your voice for later. A lot of people using a lot of lozenges and other stuff, and you can tease. I do that afterwards. During, I try not to mess with that, because if you get hooked into that, then you need it, and then it becomes kind of like a psychosomatic crutch or whatever, then you don't have your lozenge that day, you don't have your magic key that day, you get insecure, and you might not perform as well when you probably would perform just fine without it. So lots of water, lots of stretching, lots of vocal warm-up from a kind of organic perspective. But there are legit warm-ups you can do. Like, you know, you get on the piano and go, we do that, you know, play on, there's different phrases you can say, different tongue twisters you can say, and I'll use those when I get stuck, but I don't do a lot of it. I probably should. But breath support's key. Yes, guy with the beard, yes. Which is every guy in Canada practically. I don't know if they're Canadian. Well, it's weird because I talked to them about that. I thought that Goku was the mascot for the 2020. And someone from Japan who works at Toei said, no, I checked out. It's not one of many mascots. And then they did intimate to me that maybe I might want to come out, but I'm like, well, you're going to bring out Masako Nozawa. You're not going to want me out there. But, if they wanted, like, the English version to come out there for the American, to cheer on the American contestants, maybe, I don't know. I would love to go. I've been to Japan once. I'm planning to go back this year or next year for just a long trip, just to really see the countryside, because I have such a close association with the country, and I'm a bit of a Japanophile. And so, if that's the right word even. But yeah, man, I would love that. I think it'd be great. Who's next? Let's do one more. The guy with the squall. Yes, you're a squall. Yes. Well, I knew Piano Squall back in the day. The guy who plays piano, and now he's a composer for Sony, I think. Yeah, I'm disappointed. Not in myself, is what I mean. Well, yeah, but where's my controller was messed up, and on this next one, I did pretty well, and my team did better than me, and I guess I can't use this as an excuse because they had the same problems I was having, but I didn't have any sound in my headphones, and I timed all my combos with sound effects, so I was like listening for everything. But my other teammates, like Justin Briner, kicked ass without any sound, so I'm like, well, maybe I need to change my strategy and not use sound as my... I'm not good with the visuals, so I just pay attention to audio. Anyway, by the way, for those of you, I'm doing a panel tomorrow too, aren't I? I'm really surprised. Cool.
Where else can they find you this week?
I will be at my table until 7 tonight. I'll be at my table tomorrow and Sunday. During most of the day, I'll have breaks throughout the day. Can I have one more question? Are we out? Yeah, let's do one more. Ding! I'll do a quick answer. Yes. Ding! Yeah, this guy. Here's the thing, I read the Dragon Ball manga and I read the Dragon Ball Z manga, but I get so nervous about reading manga because I don't trust the translators. I never trust the translators. And Viz does a great job. Viz produces a lot of manga. But every time I'll look at Viz, and I'm sure it's a fine translation, then I'll look at something else. I'm such a purist. I'm always be going, did you really say that? Really? Would it be different if they... And so I probably should read more manga because I probably would like a lot. I feel like I would probably like manga. Because I've read some of it, but I haven't. The only thing I have on my shelf is Dragon Ball. I don't have anything else. And I almost bought Shaman King because I was in that show, and I want to get My Hero Academia manga because I'd rather read the manga because they won't let me be on that show. No, they haven't said anything to me about it. But yeah, that's interesting. It's something I've wanted to explore. I'm such a stickler on translations because I'm afraid they're not going to get. What I've learned about translating is you need to be a technical translator, but you also need to have an acumen in English for writing poetically. You need to be able to really interpret language, and most translators are very good mechanically. They get the meaning, but they don't, once they're done, hone that into something that matches the emotional flavor. They'll just get the raw content down, Most translators do. And I'm looking for something that gives me the same experience